Hey everybody, Julie here. Today on this episode of Flower Friday, on a Saturday, we'll be making this flower here. This is the punched version of a rose. This is from it's also this here as well. This is from the McGill Punch, this one. It's called the Floral Petals. And I had several requests after I showed this in my haul to do a video on how to make these flowers. So once I got fairly comfortable with making them myself, I decided that I'd go ahead and show everybody how to make those flowers. And they're really not hard, but there is a lot of steps to it and a lot of shaping. So this is more for you know, the person who really enjoys making flowers, doesn't mind putting in a little bit of extra work to get them to the point where they want them, that type of thing. This is not a flower for someone who just needs a quick flower. Just so you know, so know going into it that this will take a lot of shaping and probably takes a good 5 to 7 minutes to make each flower. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. The things that you're going to need to create this flower are some embossing tools. This is a chatterbox embosser. Like I said, the last video I used this in. It's old. I probably had it for 10 years. But you can use any embossing tool that you have. You'll need a paper piercer or something with a thin tip on it for rolling the tips of your flowers. A pair of tweezers if you'd like to use them, some quick dry glue. You can use this or fabric tack or hot glue, whatever you're most comfortable with. You'll need this Floral Petals Flower Punch from McGill, and you will also need a punch that has legs on it like this one does. See how the petals are long and thin? These are going to be what we stick our petals down to, so you will need something like this. McGill recommends that you use their snowflake punch, and I don't have that one, so I had to improvise. So let me just go ahead and punch out one of these. Okay, and we'll set that aside. Okay, you are going to need to punch out 6 times each of these. So you're going to punch out 6 of each of these petals. So you'll punch this 6 times, if that makes sense. Okay, and then you'll have 6 of each of the 4 petals. And what I've done is I went ahead and I shaped all my petals except for these 3 because they're all shaped the same. The first 3 sizes are all shaped the same. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that now, and then I'll show you how to do the very tiny flowers that you use for the very center of your rose. Okay, first things first, after you punch them, you're going to need to make your flowers have a little more dimension. So this is where you're going to take your paper or your embossing tool, and you're going to run circles on your paper, and this is going to turn your petal into a cup shape like that. Okay, let me see so you can see that and see how that dimension there. Okay, so you're going to do that on all of your petals. So I've done mine already. All 3 of these are done. Let me do this just a little bit more. Okay, and then the next step is going to be to pinch these in half. Okay, so you're going to just pinch this petal completely in half. Okay, so you just take your petal like this and you're just going to pinch it in half. And this paper is only one-sided, but you can definitely use double-sided. In fact, it's probably more recommended that you use double-sided. I did use double-sided on these flowers. You really can't see the bottom of the flower if you're looking at the top, but you know, when you get closer to the middle, you can see. Okay, so now that I have all of the petals folded in half, you're going to take your paper piercer or something that is thin, and you're going to hold your petal with your forefinger and your thumb, and then you're just going to roll the sides, and you're just going to roll them back on each one of these. Okay, so all you're doing is just creating that curve. Okay, so you'll do that on the rest of them. Okay. All right, so now that I've got those petals done, I'm going to set those the largest size aside for now. And I've got the next 2 sizes done already just for time's sake. And I'm going to put on my mat here, I'm going to put the smallest of the petal shape. And this is probably about just a little more than 1/4 of an inch. So they are very small. And what I've done so far is I've taken 3 of them and I've just rolled them all with my paper piercer. I've just held it and just rolled it completely around. Okay, so it just looks like a little piece of sausage, you know, just something rolled up there. And then I went ahead and I did my embossing. I punched down or ran a circle through each one of them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take it and you're going to take your paper piercer or your thin object and you're just going to roll the sides. You don't need to fold these, you're just going to roll the sides. Okay, and then I'm just going to try and roll the tip. Okay, but I want my sides to stay rolled a little bit at least. Okay, because you're going to want, this is going to be what goes around the bud of your flower. So these need to have quite a bit of dimension. You can do a little more shaping with them once we get to that point as well when you're assembling the bud of the flower. This by far is the hardest part. So I'm just going to roll each of the sides just a little bit. So I'm rolling those and then I'm going to take this top piece and I'm just going to roll that back. And then I'm just going to kind of bend it in just a little bit so I get a cup shape, but all of my sides are rolled in as well. Okay, so I'm going to put those off to the side. Now you've got your little flower that you're going to assemble your larger flower on. This is a petal that you're going to assemble your larger flower on. I'm just going to just roll around the center there so that the petals on this flower sit up. Okay. Now I'm going to start with the largest petals and I'm going to put just a little bit of glue out on my mat. You don't need a whole bunch of glue for this one, but it is recommended that you use a quick dry glue because you're going to want something that sets up very quickly. So you're going to take each petal and you're going to dip it in with whatever side of the paper you want facing up. So you're going to glue the back, and I like to dip it in and then just wipe off some of the glue. And then I'm going to hold my base petal in my hand and I'm going to attach my petal to one of the spindles that stick out, one of the petals that stick out. And I'm just going to hold it there just for a second because I want it to get nice and set up. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab one of the other ones. I'm going to do the same thing and we're going to go all around this, just attaching them as we go. And you do have to hold them down for just a couple seconds, even with quick dry glue, just to make sure it forms a decent bond. Try and get them as evenly spaced as you can. Okay, so now we've got the first 3 on. We'll go ahead and do the next 3. I put a little bit more light in here because I'm doing this video at night, and so I hope that it comes out okay and it's not too glary, I guess, if that's a word. Getting some storms right now, so I thought this would be a perfect thing to do. Hopefully the power doesn't go out though. Let's hold that down and then we'll go ahead and do the next one. Okay, so now we've got our base petals on. We've got the first 6 petals on. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our next smallest size and we're going to start alternating them against the petals. So I'm going to get my glue and wipe some off. And then, okay, here's another tip. I'm not going to go all the way to the center with these petals. When we put our actual bud in, it's going to cover up the center anyway. And I want my flower to look pretty full, so I'm kind of going to set these up on the petals that we already laid down. Okay, we're just going to keep going across. Now, if you find that 6 of the smaller, as you get further down into the flower, if you find that 6 of the smaller petals is not enough, then by all means just punch a couple more and fill it in. There's no right, that's, you know, that's not, definitely not wrong, and you can definitely do that to make your flower look fuller. Okay, so we'll just keep doing this. Keep trying to alternate your petals too. Okay, so now we've got our first 3 on. Since this was a pattern paper, I'm trying to make sure that the different colors in the pattern paper don't necessarily end up right next to each other, so you can definitely see the dimension in the flower. And you just have to hold it down just for a second, like I said. Just give that glue just enough time to bond together. Okay, so now we've got our first 2 layers, and you can see how the dimension is starting to shape up. Okay, so now we're going to go with the second to the smallest petals. I need to get a little bit more glue here. Okay. Now you're just going to glue, wipe it off a little bit. Let's see, I'll start this one right here. Okay, let's see what colors we have. Let's go ahead and go with a white one. Or not white, but you know what I mean. And I'm kind of using this little tip here. Oh, where'd it go? This little tip here on the petal right here, the like tail. I'm using that to kind of sit it up straight in the flower. And that's going to give us that a little bit more dimension. Oops, see that one. When you get closer to the middle, you might have to hold on to it just for a couple of seconds longer, because you're kind of, you know, you don't have as big a space to glue on when you get to this size. You know, your tip is very small. Okay, so then I've got 2 more to fit in here. And like I said, you know, sometimes you won't need as many, sometimes you'll need more. It just depends on how big you're making your flower and where you set them up on that base petal. I'm going to go ahead and, even though I've finished this, I'm going to go ahead and put this one in there. Just a little, just for a little bit more dimension. Okay, so now I've got everything but the center of my flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that bud. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry for a few minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and try and make this bud with these 6 petals. Okay, so I have my 6 of the smallest petals. 3 of them are rolled onto into just like a little cylinder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of them apart and I'm going to attach it to the next one. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to just get some glue on the back of my flower here. Okay, and I'm going to roll this one up, and I'm going to just stick this one in, stick the glue side into the open spot. I know this is kind of hard to explain. You're just going to stick the glue side into the open spot and then roll it back around. Okay, so you're just creating that center of the flower. Okay, and now you do need to hold that there for just a couple seconds, and then you're going to do the next one. All you're going to do is just roll it right around the other 2 that we've already done. And this is just the outside of your petal then, or the outside of your bud. Okay. All right, so now I've got that done, and this is just 3 of the smaller petals. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the ones that we shaped, and I'm going to put the glue on the front this time. Okay, because that's how I'm going to attach it. I'm going to attach it on the front, and I'm just going to use my fingers and just push it around. So I'm just kind of like going in a half circle around the flower. Okay, and then we're going, once this is dry, we're going to hold on to it for a few seconds, and then we're going to take our paper piercer or whatever we've used to shape our flower, and we're going to bend these petals back. Okay, so while you're holding on, securing that with your hand, you're just going to take your paper piercer and just turn the top back. Okay, so now we're all attached and we've got a little bit of dimension there. Now we're going to take our next one And we're going to do the same thing with it. We're going to dip the front in the glue. And you don't need a whole bunch, remember. And we're just going to go almost where that one ended. Okay, and we're going to wrap it around, and we're going to hold it so that we're creating that bud. We're just going to hold it for a few seconds so that it attaches. And then we're just going to make sure that we keep with this rolled down. We keep it rolled down so that you still get that bud part of the flower. Okay, and then with our last one, we'll do the same thing, get our glue on it. And then where the open spot was, we're going to attach our last petal. And we're just going to bend it around. Oop. And then we'll just fold those petals down like we did on the other two. Okay, so that's all that you're going to do to get your center of your flower. Now, since the center of my flower here is white, I'm going to color it. I'll probably use just a little bit of stickles or something that'll just change that color from white to a pink color, because that's what will match this flower. Okay, so now the base of your flower should be dry. And what you're going to do is kind of set this in here and see how it's going to look. Now see how, for me, this sets up just a little bit too high. Okay, see how it's kind of just a little bit above the outside of the flower? I'm going to cut the base of this flower down. Okay, so I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut right here so that we get a smaller petal. Oop. Okay, it's just a little bit smaller so that it'll sit down inside the flower. Okay, now on this part, I like to use a little bit of hot glue because I want a really strong bond here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue in there. Okay, and then I'm going to stick my flower, my bud, right down there in the center and kind of maneuver it around until I like how it looks. Okay, and if you don't want to do all of this work to get that bud just perfect, just put a pearl in the middle or put a rhinestone or something, you know, some kind of bling. Just put that in the middle. That's fine. Nobody says that you have to have a bud like this in the center. You know, that there's no law that says that has to go there. So I just did that so you could see the entire complete flower. But I have on one of my other ones, like on this one here, I didn't even shape the petals. I just put all the petals together and then just put the pearl in the middle, and that worked out fine for me. So let me find my stickles in that color. And we'll just finish this off. Just a little bit of stickles right there. And then when that dries, that'll be nice and shiny. All right, everybody, I hope that you've enjoyed this flower. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.